Good morning, Dave. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, I can.
I'm just getting the TV up and running and we'll be, good morning, we'll be ready to go shortly. Morning, everyone. As we prepare to start, I'm going to go ahead and mute all guests that are joining us online, and would ask that you stay mute, please, unless called upon. And of course, always Housing Commission members, you are free to unmute yourself and speak at any time. I just want to make sure we have good audio for everyone today. Thank you. You're ready whenever you are. Give it one more minute. 9.
Start shooting like people that materials and not still.
Last night, that was our.
Yeah, it was an idea. And they're actually starting to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Tillamook County Housing Commission meeting. Today is January 4th of 2024. Happy New Year, everybody. And so I'm gonna go ahead and start. My name's Carrie Fleischer. I'm the vice chair of that commission, and I'm running the meeting today because unfortunately Ed is at home recovering. So he's virtual today. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with board members in the room, and then we'll move to members on the line. And then we'll go through everybody and anybody that is online that are missing the packet of information today. It is now available on the board of, or on our website. There was an error with our website host with getting those documents. So you should be able to find that. That link is now active as of this morning. So if you need presentation materials to reference during our meeting today, you can find it there. And so I will start.
I'm Chris Lockenmeyer. I'm a large employer representative. I'm Kristen Koptiuk. I'm an at-large representative based in Rockaway.
Mark Kestner, North County rep.
Michelle Yang, large employer representative with Benstown, Tillamook.
Sarah Dental.
Parker Sammons, I'm the Tillamook County Housing Coordinator.
Sarah Absher, Community Development Director.
Melissa Carlson Swanson, I'm nonprofit representative.
Erin Starr, Tillamook County Commissioner and liaison to this group.
Megan Carpenter, representative of the city of Tillamook.
All right, Dave, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, Dave Bennett, South County Representative.
Ed,
Hi, Ed Gallagher, North County Representative. If you haven't had COVID yet, please try to avoid it.
and then Briar.
Briar Smith, member at large.
Is that all the, I see anybody, any other members?
I do not see any other members, but you do have a few guests.
Okay, guests online, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Dave.
Oh, Dave.
just popped in.
Dave Madison, please introduce yourself. And unmute yourself.
I think Dave needs a moment to finish logging in.
Yeah.
There you go.
We'll circle back to him. So if any other people online that would like to introduce themselves, please feel free.
This is Clayton Taylor, representing Maker and West of West Architects here on the call. We were another applicant from last time, just watching the commission meeting happen.
Great, thank you for joining us.
My name's Mary. I'm the city planner for Rockaway.
This is Leon Talismanich, Tillamook Bay SBDC Director.
All right, and we have a rather large audience. If anybody would like to introduce themselves.
Gary Cooper, director of the EDC here in Tillamook.
Greg Walton with Bellwether Design, so home builder, added by the.
Great.
Rich Brackey. Yes.
TJ Fiorelli, development consultant, Fiorelli Consulting.
Todd Johnston, member of the public.
Jeff Hopper, member of the public.
Great, thank you guys for joining us today. We have a pretty, Dave, are you able to hear us now? Okay, good.
I think it's still muted though.
You're still muted though.
There we go.
If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Dave Madison, city planner with the city of Bay City and housing commission member.
Thank you. All right, well, I'm gonna hand the meeting, well, actually, we have, next on our agenda is the mission minute. Is there any, anybody that would like to bring something forward? All right, well, I'll gotta quickly mention something. I was out in the field on Tuesday and I was able to see several of the new projects that were approved for this last prior round of multiple family rental housing, this the fund, and saw several of those under construction. The units, both in Bay City and Bayside Gardens, are coming along great. So I just wanted to let you all know that the funds are being used. And I was really excited to see them started and going forward, and they're coming along pretty quickly on some projects.
I think I'd just like to share that, my mission minute is coming to the end of this round of presentations and how excited I am to hear all the hard work that's gone into all of these presentations. And I'm just so grateful that we were able to get here and appreciate everybody's effort to get here.
All right, is there any member of the public that would like to make a comment at the beginning of our meeting?
My comment will be if you could please silence your cell phone.
All right, hearing none, we're gonna go straight into our applicant presentations today, and I'm gonna hand the meeting off to Parker.
Absolutely. Our first presentation today is Mr. Pirelli.
That was actually my cue.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and ask the chair if you could give me that permission.
I just did.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah.
Mhm.
You took away my opportunity to stall for a moment.
I can stall for you. I got one-liner jokes and stuff.
There we go. Right. Right, so this should be visible here. Just a quick confirmation. Can folks see this online?
Yes.
Alrighty, thank you, Dave. So good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to present today. I understand I have about 20 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and keep this to about 15 minutes. And I'd like to open it up for an opportunity for questions and answers for the last 5 minutes if possible. As you all know, this applicant, Tyler Brogdon, who I'm sad to say is unable to be here this morning. He had intended to be online, but he too is battling something, perhaps COVID or something else, and death is at his doorstep, he feels like. So he's going to go to the doctor this morning, and I'll be representing him independently this morning. As you all know, he was a pre-development applicant last year, so he was just well on his way in purchasing the property when Tyler was here this time last year. Since then, he's done a significant amount of pre-development work. And most importantly, he submitted his report that was required for pre-development applicants from the prior year. One thing I want to let you all know right off the top is there were no big surprises, no big cost increases, nothing that would make us feel like this project is not possible to move forward. But all the same constraints that we expected to occur at that time still exist. And we'll go over those today, let you know what we're asking for this time around, give you a little bit of an update about where we are. So just a quick update for the finance committee, you all are going to be able to dive into this pretty much in detail. What we have here is about a $6 million project, in total 29 units. So about $260, or excuse me, 260,000 or $260 per square foot is what it comes out to. The land itself was 180,000, and a lot of our costs, our pre-development costs, are going largely into geotech and excavation. There's a significant amount of excavation work here because of the topography, and I'll show you a little bit about that in the renderings that we have coming forward. Interest rates are actually going to be a little bit better than we had expected before, but costs increased a little bit. So we're kind of balanced out around the same price that we were looking at. We were looking at maybe a 7.5% interest rate at this time last year. So thankfully, we're seeing those things come down a little bit. And our rents are averaging out at 97% across the entire project. So 29 units. We've got 8 units at 120% AMI. So that is at the top end of workforce housing, but certainly not over that threshold, still eligible for most of the subsidies that are available for workforce housing projects. And the rest of the units are all going to be 100% or lower with, importantly, 4 units, 2-bedroom, 2-bath at 70% AMI, meaning that a family, maybe somebody working in retail or 2 people working in retail could afford a place like this. This is a really big deal. And I think mixed income is going to allow for a really good neighborhood feel. I want to show you a few renderings just on what kind of development units we're talking about. So these are nice products. They look really good from our perspective. Good daylighting, good materials on the side. We're going to be using hardy board siding. So right in the middle of the road for what you'd expect for workforce housing. You can see a little bit right off the bat, and we'll show more of these later on, but the topography, there's a lot of cut and fill that has to happen here. So some costs associated with that. But this is the product we're talking about, 4 to 6 units per building distributed out across the entire site. And here's just a quick rendering of the 4 typologies of units that are going to be distributed across all of the different units or the project. So I want to give you a little information about the site location. Those of you who were here last year are well aware of this, but we're actually right here in Bay City, right at the top end of Bay City, and focusing specifically on this Hobsonville Point area, these 4 lots right here, as well as a large area of wetland, which offers us some opportunities for ecosystem services, as well as some recreation. We'll talk about that maybe some other time. We want to focus our attention today on the development program. So zoning is all going to be moderate intensity zoning. We have our Bay City planner online today, and he can probably fill you in really well in detail about what that means. Essentially, though, we're building the kind of product that fits within this zoning area. Infrastructure, one thing I want to go ahead and point out is that we have water lines coming up to the southeast portion of the site, just away from it, probably about 2 blocks away. And then we'll be dealing with our sewer a little bit further up here, northwest portion of the site. And I've got some details on that here in a little bit. Our topography is really challenging. So this is why I wanted to demonstrate for you. We provided both a hillshade so you can see the kind of topography that we're looking at. And we have about a 40-foot elevation at the south portion of the site that begins to actually taper down slightly. But that's a lot of where our housing is going to go in the areas where you see a lot of topography. And that's simply because we have wetlands in this area over here where it would be nice and flat and easy to build. So that's not open to us. Here's a little bit of what we're going to have to do in terms of that topography. So we have some retaining walls that are going to have to come down as we step down along the incline here, or the decline rather. So you can see that there's going to be a lot of work that typically isn't involved on a site that has very flat topography. That's one of our biggest challenges, and that's why you saw such a big cost estimate for the excavation component. And just some more of that as well. You'll be seeing that step down across every single site, but it looks good. And the thing is that this is exactly what we need to do on a site like this. And a little more of that as well. That's probably one of our steepest areas right there. So here's our wetlands. We've completed the wetland delineation. The good news is that it's not a knockout, but the bad news is that we do have a lot of wetlands to navigate around. These are largely riverine wetlands that we've been able to navigate around. Up here are palestrin wetlands that are around the entire year, and there's really no way to navigate around those at all. So one of the things we're looking at is wetland mitigation bank credits and some other opportunities that will allow us to bring in some funding while also creating some ecosystem services and recreation opportunities for the community. Again, further down the road, discussions that we can have, but the point to point out is that we won't be developing there. We do have other plans for that area. Also, what we have, and this ties into that ecosystem services piece that we were talking about before, is that we have some intact habitat corridors in these areas. And so what we can imagine is multimodal transportation, perhaps even Salmonberry Trail interconnections in this area right here in the future. So really great opportunities for people who live here to actually get out and about and enjoy nature, but also be able to see some of that natural beauty that we're preserving on that northwest corner of the site. Here's our development plan. So what we have is 4 buildings along this southwest area, as well as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings along this northwest area. So on either side of the street facility Here's some wetlands right here. And just to point this out for you, I'll make sure that you all get, I don't know if you have a copy right now, it looks like you do. But you should be able to see on there, 4 units, 2 units, 4 units, 2 units. So those typologies of housing that we showed just a little bit ago, they're distributed nicely along this site. I think using the landscape really well is, so we're not crowding them in. They still have enough space, but we're not, pushing into that wetland area. Here's that site plan with all of the buildings configured together. That's basically what we'd expect it to look like. And we'll talk a little bit down here. This is kind of a turnaround, a hammerhead turn that we have to deal with as well, which is another additional cost. And just another rendering of what that will look like, hammerhead turn at the back once again. So let's talk about our infrastructure. So our water line is going to be right here. That's the closest point for the water. One of the things we're doing is we're working specifically with the city of Bay City to make sure that we have the infrastructure capacity to bring that water line up onto the site. That's something that we've been able to determine that we can do. Everything is in line for that, but that's where it's located. And that new water line is basically going to go right about here. So you can see the streets are right here. This is the grid pattern that you can see on this drawing here. And the water line essentially is going to come up from right about here up to this area. So you can see exactly where that's going to go. Not a long distance, but still some costs associated with it. It's not right there on site and ready for it. And then we also have sanitary sewer. So what we'll be doing is putting our sanitary sewer pump station right at the northwest corner of the site. Now, this is another piece that we've been able to partner with Bay City on to get some additional support to make this happen. So Bay City ended up putting in some of their STR fees, their funding that they have available for system development charges, so that we could actually make sure that this was something that could be put in. So we're actually collaborating with them. This project would not be possible without that support from Bay City. So a big thank you to them. And a big thank you to Leanne Welch, who was an instrumental part of that before she departed and left the reins to David McCall. And here's that sanitary sewer pump station again, just kind of zoomed in for you, and you can see exactly how that looks. Here's that hammerhead turn that we were talking about just a few minutes ago. So it's right by the water sanitary pump station. Essentially, the way that we had to configure this with a hammerhead was because of those wetlands, for people to be able to get up into the back of the facility and turn around essentially. So that's going to be something like, basically they'll be able to turn around in this area and get back out through the facility. All your parking is going to be back down here. I wanted to point this out again, because this is not something that's always typical on sites like this. It was the constraint of the wetlands that required us to have to do something like this. And again, this is some additional cost. And here's a fire truck turnaround as well that we're including. And this is kind of more typical or standard for what you'd see on a project like this. But it also has we had to play with it in terms of where it's located near the hammerhead turn as well. So some additional costs for street development. So just again, I wanted to give you a quick view of what that looks like. So they're coming around over here. They'll be able to, it won't be a roundabout. This is kind of misleading in the rendering. It'll be more of that hammerhead turn that you saw, where people will be able to come around here and then come back around. So it won't be just a sweeping turnaround like you might expect. A few more renderings as well. So you can see the entrance coming through the facility all the way back through all of the units, and then being able to turn around through the facility. And we wanted to go ahead and return again to our development pro forma. So a couple of the things to point out right here, our investors, so this is primarily the Coastal Homes LLC investors themselves, are putting in $400,000 into this project. They hope to be able to put some more into this project as well. But the majority of what they're going to be doing in terms of getting money for this project is going to be loans, essentially. And while rates are coming down, it makes it much more difficult to keep our rents where we want them to be. And I think this is a story that all of you are very well aware of at this point in time. We are looking at about $5.8 million at a 6.5% interest rate. The more subsidies that we can bring in, the less that we need from our loans, which in turn means that we can keep those rents lower for a much longer period of time. As you all know, we're looking at hopefully 30 years long term. So you'll see us come back to this Housing Commission probably next year when we're ready to finalize this project and talk about what our rents finally will be once we're able to get all of the pre-development and construction work out of the way. And we'll be able to show you, I think, a little more detail as well along the lines of the development summary, but most of this stuff is nailed down. Everything but the construction, which is the lion's share of the project, is pretty much done. Paving's not done yet either, but the rest of this stuff is nailed down and those costs are pretty solid and firmed up at this point in time. And again, I just wanted to return to this screen so that you knew exactly what it is that we're targeting in those rents. This is the exact same mix of rents that was proposed last year. Again, 120%, 100%, 80%, and 70% across the 29 units for an average of 97% AMI. So right smack dab in the middle of what you're looking for, both in terms of the multifamily rental housing fund, but also for the property tax exemption that exists out there with some of the cities in the county. It hits that same level that I think you're looking at in terms of a benchmark. And just to close, these are the housing typologies because I suspect I'm going to get some questions about that. So we'll be able to return to some slides if we need to. But wanted to recap on exactly what our funding gaps and challenges are. It's system development charges, road improvements, largely around the Hammerhead turn. That city water trunk that we were talking about coming on the site, a 2-block distance to get there, as well as a pressure reducer valve that's around $50,000 in order to make that infrastructure happen. So these are our biggest constraints, and that isn't even including the same market conditions everybody else is fighting with in terms of interest rates. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and stop and open the floor for questions.
TJ, can you share more about Tyler's background?
Yeah.
Because we have some new commission members who probably aren't familiar with Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tyler is a local guy. He was born and raised here in Tillamook County and had started working on construction projects out in the valley early on in his career in his 20s. He had the opportunity to really just start digging into that work as a foreman in that company. And after some time decided, you know, I can go and do this. This is something that I could actually make happen here on the coast. So about 5 years ago, Tyler started his own company, Coastal Homes LLC, and focused specifically on single family homes and started graduating to larger and more complicated projects. One of those, in fact, was my project, a duplex that was built by Tyler a little over a year ago. We were very happy to have that closed out and done several months ago, right in the beginning of January, we were able to just be done with that. So we've been in for a year now. But he's been doing other duplexes throughout the community, as well as some multifamily projects. He works with a number of subs who are super reliable. And one of the things I think is best about Tyler's project and his company in general is that he's able to pull subs in from multiple different places. So there's rarely a gap in the amount of time that he needs to bring projects together in terms of one sub finishing one piece and the other one picking up where they left off. A lot of contractors here on the coast have trouble with that. Does that give a good summary?
I had a question. Is there a plan for sidewalks or a requirement for sidewalks by the city?
Yes, we are not there yet. So one of the things that we're looking to do right now is just finish up the street design, and the sidewalks are going to be a component of that. So yes, we're meeting all of the city requirements, but we're also planning to go above and beyond that so that there's ADA accessibility, and that we're also thinking about the integration with some of those opportunities in the northwest corner of the site where people can actually leave the site and go into maybe, the woods area that is paved or walking areas.
If I could just comment, Tyler and his crew have been before the city of Bay City for pre-application meetings a number of times in the last couple of years, and we've really worked with them, and we're on full force with them and cooperating with them to a great extent. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Is there going to be parking in each unit, or is there going to be a parking area more like a apartment type style?
So there's going to, I think it's something like 1.8 parking spots per unit. We're hitting the city's requirement and going just over that. But yes, there will be parking and we'll be hitting the minimum requirements.
And I think in the last presentation on the last round, he mentioned that he was going to stay with this project and see it for a long time. Is that still the case, or is he gonna farm this out to a management company?
No, he will absolutely hold on to this long term. In our conversations, I think Tyler plans on handing this off to his kids. And so typically what you see is a lot of deferred maintenance, just holding on until that 10-year mark. And then developers often say, maybe I'll go ahead and offload this. His plan is to make sure that he keeps up with that maintenance and keeps it up over time, so that at year 10, it's still as good as it is at year 20 when he's ready to hand it off to the next generation.
And I think in the last presentation that he had, he was talking about possibly a phase 2. Is that still in the works, or did that wetlands kind of throw a wrench in that?
It's all phase 1. That's a really good memory and good point. Yes, it was going to be 2 phases, but it just made a lot more sense to get it all done at once, largely because of the wetlands and the constraints.
How much is the ask?
So the ask, I believe we were asking for 300,000 on this.
And do you guys have funding from other sources besides bank?
So we're working with the state right now. So we plan on submitting a LIFT grant. We fall squarely in the middle of their requirements. We also received a subsidy from this Housing Commission last year at $66,000, which was put to good use in a lot of the pre-development work that we've done and able to firm up those costs. So thank you very much. And we'll also be looking at some federal grants, but as you know, we're in the workforce housing territory. So there are fewer grant opportunities available than if we were to go more strictly towards the low-income housing.
It struck me that in the drawings, in the design images, you don't have the rest of the town visible. So it's hard to tell how it intersects with and integrates into the rest of the city.
Yeah, as you could tell, these are somewhat preliminary designs. They're going to get kind of nicer with the coloring and the shading and the borders. These were really just proof of concept to show you what it is we're doing. But in the next couple of months, we'll have a nice 3D model that can get plunked in the middle of a map. And what we'll be able to do is show both on social media as well as with you folks if you're interested, what that looks like in a 3D model.
Is it connected to, I'm trying to picture it, like, is it connected to other housing areas or close to the city part of the town?
You know, it's somewhat disconnected from some of the other housing areas within Bay City, but it's also in that area of Bay City that has a lot of opportunity for expansion. So they're one of the first projects over in that neighborhood.
I want to make sure anybody online has a chance to ask a question.
Good morning,
Yes.
DJ. This is Dave.
Morning, Dave.
Hi. Got several questions for you regarding numbers. You know, I'm a numbers guy and I just can't help myself, so I apologize. So if I may, just quickly here, with regard to your pro forma, I was looking at the section that that generates the rent, the annual rent revenue. And for example, it's where we have 8 units at 120% AMI at $2,100 a month and so on, that table.
Yeah.
So when I ran those numbers, I came up with a different amount for annual rents. I came up with $619,200, $619,200, as opposed to in the pro forma $647,000. So you might check that. I may have made an error, but you might just double check that.
Thank you.
So with regard to the 300,000 that you're requesting, we're showing here in the pro forma $400,000 of investors' equity. And how does that then relate to the 300,000 that you're requesting? Does that mean that we'd have then, in essence, $700,000 of equity in this project going forward?
No, you'll see in that sources and usage input page that just below that, there's $66,000 in subsidies. And so the 300,000 we're requesting, should we receive that or a portion of it, would be added to that 66,000. The $400,000 that's coming from the investors would be cash money from the investor themselves.
Okay. Okay, so if you were to receive a $300,000 grant, then that would reduce the amount of the loan that you would need to make this project work.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good. And so with regard to the loan, at this point where we're talking about $466,000 of equity, that's 7% of the total project cost. which means we need to raise 93% of the total project cost via debt funding. And we're just wondering if have you had a chance to talk to any lenders? Are there lenders out there that are willing to loan 93% of a project cost?
Yeah, we have a lender that's working with us right now. And you can see that that interest rate that we plugged in is the interest rate that we expect to see. Again, we can't see a rate lock for another year or two. And we do, as well as our lender expects for us to go and bring in some additional funds. So we have a LIFT grant to get through. We have this project to get through, but you are right. Whatever we don't bring in terms of subsidies or direct investments will be something that we have to go out and get debt on and service that debt over the long term at the interest rate that we're looking at. So, yeah.
So in my limited experience, generally lenders, particularly in this economic environment, are willing to put up 75% of the project cost. Never seen anything like 93%. So do you actually have a traditional bank lender that's interested in that kind of funding?
We do, yes. There's there's a bank lender that's interested in that kind of funding. We think that they're more interested in the $5 million for vertical construction than typically pre-development. Most banks don't cover pre-development costs. So a lot of the money that we're putting in right now is money that the bank will obviously not be financing. They're just going to be financing what's really left over when we go moving forward with vertical construction. We expect their total to be around maybe 5 million, somewhere around there.
So to make sure I understand then, out of the $6.3 million of total costs, $5 million would be funded with a conventional bank loan.
That's what we would expect, and that's what we would hope as well. We really don't want to go higher than that, even if they give us that opportunity, again, because we want to be servicing that debt at such a high interest rate.
Okay. Just two other quick points for you. With regard to your debt service coverage ratio, 1.11 times. Again, in my limited experience, generally that's not adequate for a bank. They're going to want to see at least 1.25, if not 1.5 times. Is your lender interested in the loan at that rate, you think?
They know that these are metrics that are changing over time as costs go up or down and as we bring money in. So you're absolutely right. They're not going to lend to us until we're able to demonstrate a DSCR of around 1.25 or above, but we do fully expect for that to be the case. And we know that if necessary, we're able to put in additional capital, or at least really struggle to bring in our additional investors to put that capital in. All those questions and conversations are being had currently, but you're absolutely right, Dave. We have to get to that 1.25 at a minimum for even this lender who's been working with Tyler for many years to really move forward with the loan.
Okay. So one last question for you then. With regard to our pro forma revenues and expenses, what I'm seeing here is total expenses for year one. These would be operating expenses of $140,503, which is unusually low in terms of percentage of gross rents. Generally, those operating expenses are more like 40% of operating rents, and we're here in our pro forma at 22%. I suspect it might have something to do with property taxes. The property taxes we have projected for year one are $8,912, which seems to be relatively low. I would expect it to be 2 or 3 times that amount. What are your thoughts with regard to property taxes? Are we looking at an exemption here?
No, we're not, but you can see my assumptions that I made if you have access to that spreadsheet that I shared. You can see the assumptions that I made based on the mill rate here locally. And I think something along in 80% of what the actual total value of the project would be, which would be typically what we'd see for assessed value. So again, those are all assumptions, but you can see how we got to that number, and that might change.
Okay. Well, I want to say we appreciate this effort. There's no question that making all of these kind of projects pencil is very, very difficult. And so we want to do all we can to help projects like this succeed. And so please don't take my comments as criticisms. Instead, we're just trying to find a way to make this work.
Dave, I was prepared for your questions this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Miss, I looked like you had a question, and then I think Dave Madison has a question as well.
So TJ, thank you. I'm just wanting to ask, I know that it's preliminary, you mentioned that around the development of the sidewalks and that, but playgrounds and other spaces for young folks, and then incorporating environmental and renewable energy benefits. Is there thought going into that? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, all those conversations are in the works right now. Definitely playground space, public space for both children and adults. Again, that hasn't been designed. We haven't even engaged with a landscape firm to do that work yet because we still have to get our entire site design done. And we're still in that process, but yes and yes.
Dave Madison?
TJ, could you go back to one of the slides that shows a northern perspective view of the property? And I think this would probably answer the question, Kristen, I think you brought it up earlier about how this relates to all the rest of the area around that. If you can imagine, 100-foot high trees, this is a very forested area. And so a lot of these buildings, this is up where there are a few single family homes along Hobsonville Point Road, which is to the left side of the screen. A lot of these houses will be tucked away. It'll be very fitting, I believe, with the community because a lot of these houses will be tucked away from view or from any I guess interference into the very single family home neighborhood that's there now on High Street and beyond.
Yeah, thank you, David. Since you're speaking, I wonder if you can comment on do you expect more development in this area in the future? Again, you don't have a crystal ball, but.
The biggest thing is getting infrastructure out there and then working on the geohazard reports because you have a lot of slide area to the very west of the site. And I think you've ran into that, seeing that also, TJ, on the maps. And so, I mean, this is making the most benefit out of the buck for development on that site and really respecting the area and the slope of the area and what's around you at that very northern edge of the town itself.
Absolutely. Thank you for both of those points. Again, we wouldn't have been able to do this project without the lift station and the support in terms of infrastructure from the city. So thanks for your comments, Dave.
Question more pertaining to our scoring methodology.
Let's wait until the end of the presentation then, if that's all right, unless it's present to.
It's relevant to this being a pre-development application. I feel like it's not fair, like I'm tempted to do NA on some of the questions like the sidewalks and the playgrounds, because I feel like it's premature to be trying to score that based on where a pre-development project really realistically is. So but we all need to make a agreement about whether we do it that way or not. So I'm just throwing that out there.
If you don't feel there is something that is applicable, please put not applicable on the scorecard. I think is the best way to do it. That's a decision I think everybody will have to make on that.
Okay.
Are there any further questions? Because that is about time. Thank you so much.
One more quick question, sorry.
Yeah.
PJ, with regard to the land acquisition, has that been acquired yet?
Oh, yes, that was acquired before we presented to the Housing Commission last year.
Okay, so that's another portion of your equity as well.
Oh, yeah, then that's absolutely right.
Okay, so that's in addition to the 400,000 that the investors will be putting in?
Yep, it's racking up.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, TJ.
Thank you.
Any plans for accessibility provisions?
Like ADA?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there will be units specific to ADA, and we're also going to have a number of ADA parking spaces, of course, by requirement. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, TJ.
TJ.
Everybody will have a moment to make your final notes. Our second presenter is Jeff Wong, who is a fisherman. And as you know, crapping season just opened and everybody is scrambling a little bit. So he's going to come in a little later. Fortunately, our third presenter, Heather Crawford, has agreed to go second for us. So for everybody looking at home, we'll be moving to presentation number 7, not 6. And Heather, you got like just a second. We'll give everyone a moment here to swap and finish their notes, swap over to seeing your slides. But again, at home, if you are looking at the PDF or if you are holding a physical document, we are going from presentation number 5 to presentation number 7 due to some timing problems.
The 2025. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's hard to make the adjustment, right? It's really hard, right? It's just once a year.
Yeah. And it's also.
Yes.
I'm doing that right now.
Yeah.
It's unclear. And then it does not refer to more help. Because you don't think that it's the subject. And so it will lower the total available points, and so the percentage.
That should shake out. That's what I was.
Not a zero, right?
It's gonna remove it from the scoring.
Just making sure everybody is clear. If you put an A on it, it does not help. It does not clear. Sometimes the scoring system moves some kind of the number that can be scored and the percentage will remain the same. You got that over there? Cool. I think it's a one script for Okay, it's looking like everybody is finishing up. Saying no objections to moving on. Heather, whenever you are ready.
Following TJ, I'll ever be ready.
It's like, man, that's tough.
I think I'm gonna go home now, TJ. So, I know some of you, my name's Heather Crawford. Jeff and I have lived here. He was born and raised here. I've lived here since 2006. I grew up in Lincoln City, so we've been coasties our whole life. So this summer we had the opportunity to purchase 14 acres along the Nestucca River. The property has 5 homes on it. So if you turn on Blaine Road, just as you go over the first bridge, there's 5 really sad houses on the left-hand side. And that's the property that we bought. So,
1 second, I'm so sorry. I haven't been able to get your, I'm so sorry.
really, you're fine. You can keep working on it. I'll keep talking. We had the opportunity to buy that property and we knew upfront that it was going to be a project. And the day after closing, the lid collapsed on one of the septic tanks and we had to do an immediate replacement, and that began our process of working with the county. And that's actually where I saw the flyer for this process. So the 4th unit is severely dilapidated and could not be rehabbed, and anybody that would live there shouldn't be living there. So we removed that trailer, demolished it, and got a replacement that we've moved into place now. We are actually going this afternoon to pick up the metal roofing to shore up the roof. We are sheeting it with sheet metal, and then Jeff has milled lumber for the siding, so it's going to be batten board siding all the way to the ground, so there's no rodent intrusion. We're putting new windows, new doors, just to try to increase the R factor of the property.
Yeah. Sarah. I think somebody else pushed me. There we go. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so this is the 4th unit that we're talking about, the one that there was no reason to invest money into this property. It was severely rotten and had been leaking for quite some time. It's just not salvageable. So this is the front side of the property, and you can see all the rot that we're dealing with. These are the surrounding homes, and you can see that they're all in pretty sad shape. It's just from the other side. And so this is our process of, Jeff brought in an excavator and kind of ran it over. And then we picked through it and recycled all the metal that we could, as opposed to just sending the whole thing to the landfill. So it's a little bit more of a time consuming process, but that's just kind of how we did it. And then, this is the slab. Instead of just setting it, sometimes you can just set them on blocks. We decided to, pour a concrete pad, so it again helps with rodent intrusion, making it a lot cleaner and a lot more, you're not dealing with rats out in the country like that. It's a great thing. So in the process, we had to reconnect the water and sewer lines. And then one of the things that we did in this process is remove the overhead power lines and trenched underground so that we weren't dealing with overhead lines, but as a matter of storm damage. You know, if it's underground, we're not going to lose power in a storm, and that to us was important for our tenants. So up front, there's Jeff being my little worker bee. So he's done as much of the process as he can so we can stretch our dollars. We're kind of mid-process on this, and we've invested quite a bit of money just trying to make this more habitable and safer for our tenants. What else? So this is the unit that we brought into place. So this will have black sheet metal on the top, and then the batten board siding is going to come all the way down to the foundation. So there will be no like the metal skirting that goes around the bottom. It will be completely wood all the way around. Again, the new windows and doors, and it will just look more like a little house instead of a trailer. And so our plan is across the board to do each of these units, so they all look uniform, a little bit more curb appeal. And then again, the weatherization. This house and the one next door have water issues that we've been able to seal, but in the process, we just need to bite the bullet and get everybody new roofing. The tenants themselves are, the majority of them are single individuals. There's only one couple living. They're all working individuals in Tillamook County. The HUD rate for rent for 2014 or 2024 is, I believe, $11.70 for a 2-bedroom, and our rents are 40% less than that. So what they're paying is $660 in rent per unit. And we plan on keeping them in that category. If it's, you know, if our mortgage is being covered, then we're happy. And I think that's fair across the board. The girl that lives in this house is a single parent. And so one of the things that we're not asking for funding for, but is in our process of steps for enhancing the property, is she does have a little boy. We have 1,800 feet of riverfront. We've spent quite a bit mowing down blackberries. That was a large buffer, but that brought up other safety concerns. So there's like a cattle fence. You can kind of see it behind. So one of the things that we're going to do is beef up that fencing with and make it an actual 6-foot fence that encloses all 5 houses, and put a play structure back there so that there's an area for her to safely let her child play out there. The tenants all have access to the river, but is a matter of, you know, just letting your child out to play right on the river. That was kind of a concern for us, making sure that they stay safe. At this time, that is the only child in the little complex, but so important.
So Heather, is your ask for, since the multi-rental family, the mouthful of acronym, this grant fund is designed for new housing units. And since these are habitated, but it sounds like the one that you had to replace, did that have a tenant and that was displaced?
No, so
in it, or
no, that unit was completely empty.
Okay.
And did not have anyone in it.
Okay.
It was really not livable the way it was. Yeah.
So in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, that would be the one aspect of this project that or is that just not necessarily only new units? We had rehab. I'm thinking about it. I just don't know if they.
I think that the language is such that something like a pad could be considered a new, harkening back to the tiny home community that was pitched. So slab development, the space for a home is adding a unit.
Okay. So yeah, then I guess the question would just be, what is the financial ask for the commission of the project?
So I guess it depends on how that lays out. That was not told to me that I couldn't ask for the other units.
I don't know if I'm
Okay,
speaking.
so
Right into my question,
our,
please.
just, so our plan is to rehab each unit to make them livable. They all have, water intrusion, mold issues. And so for us to preserve these properties, to maintain them as workforce housing, this is something that needs to be done. So for us, we're asking 20,000 per unit. The low estimate, so in the packet, the cost is about $29,000 to do window siding and roof. And then the underground power conversion. Obviously the house, the actual house structure is gonna cost more, just due to the size of the property. But, the other portion of kind of what we're doing, and it's kind of comes in the cost, we're removing all of the metal and putting, sheeting it with plywood first, and then putting the new siding on top of it. So it'll be a little bit more, again, insulation factor. But, so that's our plan, is to do them all the same. And then obviously there's a great deal of cost in the other things that we're talking about, but we're not requesting funding for that.
Are you going to be, throughout this process, are you going to be displacing any of the residents?
It is our plan not to. So even in the actual house, one of the things that we came across, like when we first started working with her, is that the tenants themselves were kind of afraid to ask for improvements. The previous owner made quite a stink if anything had to be done and always threatened eviction. So when we took over purchasing the property, she was washing dishes in her bathtub because her kitchen sink wouldn't drain. So things like that we're kind of overcoming. She needs new carpet really bad. And so it would probably be a process of doing one, it's 2 stories. We'd probably do one level at a time, have her stay elsewhere while we, and typically, other than moving her furniture, we should be able to do carpet replacement in a day and then just move her back in.
Can you share about your background in construction and Jeff's background too? Because I think that's an important part of things.
So I, with my ex-husband, we owned Crawford Custom Construction. We started that company in 1996. And so I still hold license on that. So I've had my contractor's license since 1996. It's basically a full general construction company. So a lot of the siding, if we chose to do cultured stone tile installation, I can do all that. So, and then Jeff owns Precision Timber. He has 25 employees. And so having the availability of housing in the community is something that is very important to him as well. Because he's got a lot of people that work here and that depend on him for a job. And if they don't have anywhere to live, then life's rough. So that's a little bit about me. And then since then, I own Lighthouse Property Management. So I do a lot in the long-term rental world.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
So I'm wondering, this is a little nuanced, but to kind of build on what we were talking about earlier. You purchased this property with the intent to make sure that these houses could stay within the available housing, correct?
Yes.
And another potential buyer could have come in, seen that as dilapidated housing and chosen to change the
Yes.
use of the property.
Right.
And so with your intent, you could have come in, displaced folks, reimagine the whole property. It may or may not have been maintained, let alone retained any level of housing available.
That's correct.
Okay.
And we did have to go through a land use appeal to actually get permission to place that 5th unit back. But Sarah was great to work with, and it was, and one of the things that I found out kind of after the fact is we don't have to replace with the same thing. We can actually, if now that we have the land use permission, we can actually build physical homes if we chose to do that down the line. But for now, we're just kind of dealing with preservation. These people have lived in these properties for way too long in a condition that they should not be allowed to live in. And even it's substandard even for Tillamook County. Like even in the houses that I see that I manage, there's some people, they're like, oh my God, why do you own houses? Like, stop it. If this is what you're gonna do, stop it, sell it. But even for Tillamook County, they're pretty rough. And so for us, it was just important to start moving along the process. And like I said, I had no idea that this was even a thing until I saw a little flyer at Sarah's office. Like, try for that. We'll see, who knows? But this just would speed things along in helping us. Like we're already about 20 something thousand with the septic tank replacement and all of the other things that we've done. Even just clearing out the blackberries was like $3,500. So we've invested quite a bit of our own money and we plan to continue to do that. And we don't need any loans or anything. We'll just keep kind of picking away and doing it as we can afford. But it just increases the speed that we can get these properties a little bit more habitable.
So you have included a budget page that has 29,000 some odd dollars. Is that the expenses for the one house that you've been talking about?
So that is, no. So on the other properties, that's what it will be. The unit number 4, the one that we moved in, is quite a bit more expensive. We paid $6,000 to have it moved and placed. We paid $3,500 for the slab of concrete. And then after it's sitting there, then we have $29,000 for the cost of the windows, siding, roofing. That's where the 29 starts, is after it's sitting in place. So each of these units, that's what it will cost to get it weatherized and new roofing and siding windows.
But so are you asking for $20,000 for 5 units? Or is this what you're asking, the 29?
I'm asking for $20,000 per unit.
Is that
Five units?
Correct.
100,000, okay.
It's not clear anywhere in the documents that we got.
I thought it said on the first line-ish that we were asking for.
It was probably in the application.
Yeah, that
You have to combine the
and this
application with
the packet
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that in the finance committee.
is the packet there. I think it's in the first paragraph that I'm asking for 120,000 per unit for 5 units. Any other questions?
Just thank you for taking this project on. It's really
Yeah.
important that somebody's taking, making the effort to help people live and just speaking as a member of the healthcare community. I literally just sent an email before this meeting today. A lot of the people that end up in the emergency room, it's black mold in their houses and things like that. So it's really important that you're
Yeah, and that was why, when we found the condition of number 4, we were like, we just can't, there's no way you can combat that. And I mean, you would throw more money at it and probably wouldn't even make a dent in it. And so we're going to start working along the properties based on need, the ones that are seeing more rot and water intrusion. But there's been, and we knew up front that there was one of the homes had rotten deck, they wouldn't use that door because the decks were so rotten they would fall through. And one of the other units didn't even have a deck, it had rotten and fallen away and they just never replaced it. So it was just like a drop off. So we've been working on things like that, but what we're asking for is just to preserve and maintain the outside of the structure and stop water intrusion.
Can I make one more plug because Briar's on? You might look into ramps and rails program, the critical repairs program at Habitat.
Okay.
Because that might be another potential source of funding for some of those.
In addition to that, if you guys recall, OHC has presented to us about some of the funds that are becoming available, and one of them is specific to preserving and restoration of mobile park trails. And so I'm working with Heather to find some other sources too. And this project has had a couple of iterations. At the beginning, they were thinking they might have to replace almost all of these and add more slabs and whatnot. So
Yeah.
this project is a little more fluid than some of the other ones and doesn't fit into any one box anywhere.
Just note that in Moab, New Mexico, they decided to replace all the aging mobile homes with new housing. That was a city project.
Is there anybody online who has any questions? Anyone left in the room?
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank Harry, with your permission, I'd like to ask for a 5-minute brief break for anybody to use the commode or take care of any other business you need. There is some water available out there. If anyone needs more, please let me know. And for folks online, we'll reconvene at about 10:05.
Oh, yes.
No, that's okay, because I thought it would just automatically pop up.
Yeah.
No, it should. So I.
Do you want me to suggest that now?
This time, because it should have automatically popped itself out. But you know what, I'm wondering. I don't know, yeah, let's do that, because I.
And it's, if you're on my attendance in there, there's a good chance you're going
It's also just hard with the only one screen to know which one I'm about to share.
Yeah.
So now I need to share screen.
So that's another one, and I'll talk to Parker, because I think that.
Yeah, see there it goes.
Leslie was here last month.
So weird, okay. I'm not gonna pop it out until we're ready.
Okay, yeah, you want to turn me off?
Let's see. I don't know.
Wasn't enough time, so.
Yeah, that's the weird that it didn't do that. Yeah, I just see it pop out. So I'm gonna do something real quick just to make sure.
Yeah.
I see that. Okay, perfect.
Yes, you know, I don't believe you talk about things.
Maybe that was one of the most.
I mean, sitting for the life. 2 or 3 weeks ago, he invited me to come check it out. Was this a meeting that I wanted to listen like in? Oh, nice to develop.
Yeah.
I think Ed actually sent me over to take the members thing. Yeah. Yeah. So Parker sent me information, but I didn't know what steps were next.
No,
Yeah, it's just down the street.
Yeah.
I'm Jeff.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to see how it all plays out. What's going on. It's good to see that. Yeah.
all right, I'm good, how are you? Sorry about that. I'm looking at this. But then we'll all watch it. And just.
I know, and then tomorrow, ours got right. AOC, right?
So
Right, so we have Thursday for next week, so okay, good. I was like, yeah.
So what, I guess to answer your question, on the rail.
I did. Yes.
Okay.
And yours is to educate.
Most of them,
So everybody else can ask for.
and everything they sell and the price for it meant for going up.
Hey, quick question of Parker. Parker, what was the official name on this last project that we listened to? Some of the material that you sent, it wasn't clear, the name.
And this is Sarah. Parker
Yeah.
just stepped out of the room. Heather and Jeff, do you have is there a name you would prefer this project to be titled?
The project itself, Blaine Rehab.
Blaine Rehab.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is he not, did he find the link?
Yes, oh,
I don't know that part.
Oh,
yes. Parker, can we have 5 more minutes, please?
Yeah.
Carrie, can we have 5 more minutes?
if you didn't catch that at home, we're gonna take 5 more minutes since people aren't quite ready to get going again.
Parker, the last project would be presentation number 7, just to be clear.
Yep, to be clear, that was presentation number 7, and we are about to hear number 6 in just a moment.
Okay, good.
I'm gonna say
Thank you.
that one more time right before we get going as well.
When I introduced myself at the beginning, what position, like what? Yeah, I was thinking a couple of different resources, maybe for Heather. One was the community action to help with colleges. And I'm gonna talk with Dan today for something else. And so I will mention, and I don't know if he. And then there's a Columbia Pacific CCO. I noticed that Leslie wasn't here today.
I call it, yeah, she got the email.
Mrs. Ford.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I've been talking to her.
Okay.
Be amazing stuff.
Because I'm pretty sure most of our people, if they are paying $6.60 a month, they're probably Columbia Pacific CCO clients. And so I think that's an interesting conversation to have with Leslie. I don't think they have thought about it that way necessarily. I haven't heard her talk about it that way. But I think if they're talking about how we help our lowest of income people, this, they might want some reservation. Because they're all that and running. Money that the county has to borrow. No, that's the other. Those are all the things.
What they're bringing up.
I will double check on all that.
Preservation of natural.
And yes.
I think it's gonna be
I know. So I think. Yes, but I want to help us, so just.
Okay.
He just drives. That's space. So that
problem with something, like knowing that it would be that for somebody that doesn't have any mindset to go and then in this one, like, right, it's like giving them the access, give us like, it's like this is people that help them figuring out how to do this. Because a lot of properties that are similar to that are placed along with another in these really desirable places. And having it, it's like, I agree. Yeah. Oh, that's the one that. Right now, right? But there was much like. I was curious too about whether or not to put in irrigation. Well, for the farm, they can. But I don't, on that other property. Yes. It's something, it's something. Yeah. Yeah. It's all we used to do. Yeah, that's what. It's. Because we're. I just think it's like a stuff to stay up. Maybe it wasn't. Chairman with them.
I bet it's very long.
That's what I figured.
That would also
Why.
Yeah. They're trying to slow that pocket.
It just. Fair share. Even get out of his way. Yes. Yes. Yeah, because that's it. There's actually a lot of fair amount to do. It's more than I was there. Things that I walk into, but I would, I really couldn't walk there. I'm really good at sharing the interview, so I figured that I didn't even go back.
That might be coming back up.
That's what it's.
And so it's been.
Why some of the most different there's nothing for that. Like it was just.
The preservation of.
How you guys have never. I mean, I think it won't. That like tires of all it's on that way, so. Think about it. So that's. You're not sad, it's just certain time. Oh, it really is. Yeah, I know. So, but also, there's that really impacted students. It was really, it's just prior to 100 March, they are got it. Also, it's the homework situation where a family has lived in a plan. Exactly. Was like, but it was on down and then they get to us probably not either. But it's just a lot. A lot. That it got to. I did. Yeah, no, it's. I like the meeting. We have a long way to go.
Are we ready?
I think we're about to start crowding everybody back. I'll go find our director. Yeah, let's start, get back to work, everybody.
Otherwise, we'll get till noon. Again.
Seems like we have to have a social hour once a week too.
That's true.
Right? We really should.
Or I'll introduce myself. You're ready.
Larry, whenever you're ready.
All right, we have our presentation number 6.
Yes, and thank you for switching with me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I changed clothes for you guys because I was wet, and then I got more wet going to my car. And it was like crazy. And then walking in here, sorry, total tangent, but it's so quiet in here and nice. I've been hearing the forklift beep for the last like 4 days. And it's just like, it was actually kind of deafening when I walked in here. So anyway, so first off, I want to thank everyone for allowing us this opportunity, and just for the Housing Commission for creating something like this. It's really good, it's forward thinking, and it really puts us in there's good optic there for other communities to see what we're doing here. And I really appreciate that from community member. So my name is Jeff Wong, and I own a commercial fishing operation out of Garibaldi. I own a commercial boat, and my family's been here since 1965, and I'm married into a 4th generation North County family there. I have a little one, so we're invested in the community. He's very little. And so, you know, we want to really reinvest here as much as possible. Yeah. So, and then a little bit last about me, I serve on Colpack and visit Tillamook as well. So those are my local connections. So I had, the business is still successful, but, you know, 10 years ago, we started creating all these other verticals within the business. And we got to a point where we had 2 food trucks, a restaurant, my fishing operation, and a farmer's market, and doing all of that. And then slowly, as we were building all this, the workforce started doing this. And my realization was when I was doing the farmer's market in Manzanita on the 7th year, fishing season was waning. And I look over to my left as I'm driving north, and the ocean is beautiful. My boat is tied up. And I had just finished a Costco run, United Grocers run, or cash and carry run. And then I'm hauling all the propane up, and because everyone's gone and I'm doing what I had hired out before, and I'm not on the ocean. So basically I scuttled everything. I got out of the farmer's market, sold the food trucks, closed the restaurant during COVID, and had a custom boat built that's kind of state of the art for my type of fishing operation. So since then, last actually 3 weeks, we opened a new offloading station for small boats in Garibaldi. And that's where I've been, and that's why I'm late. So thank you. And so now we have all this product coming in and off my boat. And so I'm looking for to be completely vertically integrated, and that gives me a place to do 2nd and 3rd stage processing. So after we get off the boat, I can do value added by creating meals or filleting that fish or smoking or whatever. So there's a little micro lot that I found in Rockaway that was for sale. And so I bought it recently, or a year ago now. And it's situated between the fire station and the Lions Club, right across from City Hall, straight downtown. It's very small, little micro footprint. So my original intention was to do some small housing and a commercial kitchen to support myself, other producers, and so we can support our tourism industry, of course, and also our local food systems here. So I can introduce my food, our partners who own farms, a number of farmers, dairy and meats, have this little basic hub. It's something also that if successful, hopefully we can replicate this in other areas of the county, if not statewide and beyond. But the idea is to have a little micro footprint of my little business processing, other businesses also using it. And then now, because of potentially with this fund, have workforce housing on top. And so ideally it would be a work-live situation for a number of people, and also help me with my staffing issues. My crew right now who fish for me, they drive down from Portland. They leave like at 3 a.m. They fish all day and then they're back on the road at 8 p.m. after we offload. It's terrible, but it's really their only choice to find a short-term situation, or sometimes we put them up in hotels if we do multiple days. But that's what we're facing now, and that's kind of a firsthand account of kind of what situation is for a business owner. There's been a lot of street talk, and I'm just gonna nip in the bud here that we had very high level talks with the Lions Club next door. Because of economies of scale, I'm doing my little project. I approached them to give them 50,000 over value, build them a new clubhouse, give them an actually licensable commercial kitchen, do a food pantry and residual income in exchange that I would take the whole property, combine them and do upwards of 20 plus affordable housing, workforce housing units above. And they said no. They said thank you, but we declined. But I just wanted on the record that we tried. And so if it ever comes up like, why don't you help them with this falling apart building? We tried. So anyway, I just wanted to address that here because a lot of people were excited about it. We had a lot of community support, but it ultimately came down to their decision and they opted not to. So I just want to clarify that. So this is my partner Todd, and is Vito online as well?
Vito, are you online, and can you unmute yourself and introduce yourself if possible?
Maybe not.
I'm not sure if Vito has been able to join us yet, or he might be struggling to mute. I will,
It was, if you hit *6, you can unmute if it's a telephone number.
Vito, if you are on the phone, it's *6 to unmute.
Yeah.
And hi, Vito.
Yeah, this is Vito. I'm on as well.
Great, welcome, Vito. So, and Todd, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. And lastly, I have some commercial properties. I've done some real estate investing and development, but by all means, I'm not an expert in it. I don't claim to be. I'm a fisherman. That's my lane or wheelhouse. More appropriate. So, but anyway, I brought on a really great team. I have a crack architect and someone with a lot of housing experience and developing experience. So I'm smart enough to know I'm not that smart. So anyway, Todd, I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I'm Todd Johnston, and my previous position was a director of the Regional Housing Authority for Tillamook County, Clatsop and Columbia County as well. So I've had 10 plus years of experience doing housing development, affordable housing management. And the most recent project was the Holden Creek Village in Tillamook that we received funding for. So, but since then, I've been working with Jeff and talking about the infill lots and the need for workforce housing and trying to find a solution that could be a pilot project and be like a replicable model that we could use in, like Jeff mentioned, different parts of the county and the state. So that's where, we sort of came up with this plan. And that, like the story Jeff was telling about people coming from Portland, we've heard that from other businesses locally about people sleeping in their cars and just the real need for housing for workforce in Tillamook County. So that's what we've been trying to address. And so we looked at a couple different sites, and this one we felt was ideal because it is small, but it's flat and it has infrastructure already. The location is great. It's next door to the plant, or not next door, down the street from the planned new city park in Rockaway. And also very close to the ocean, which provides recreation activities for any of the families there. So as Jeff mentioned, the premise was commercial on the bottom floor and then 4 units up on the top floor. And could you go back to the second slide? Yeah, so here's just a summary of what the units would look like. So there would be two 2-bedroom units in the front, which would be these with the balcony, and then 2 efficiency 1-bedroom units in the back, which would be 400 to 500 square feet.
This is the one that points those out.
Yes, there you go. So, and we were looking at targeting, I think it says on the previous slide too, up to 128, between 80 and 120% of AMI. And I think our target was right around 100% of AMI for these units. But what we liked about it is it's efficient use of space and efficient design. it is a small lot, but I think we've gotten permission that we be able to build to the corners and maybe able to get a parking variance. And we are planning on applying for the property tax event exemption as well.
And I think you probably want the park view here, yeah?
Yes, please. So this here is a view of an aerial view of the lot or the neighborhood. So this would be the Lions building here, and this would be the lot that is proposed. Fire station here, and here would be the future park. There's also connection to, here's 101 right here, and there's also connection to bus routes from the location. So as far as community services or connections, we felt that the site fit very well with that as well, with that aspect. So these are the services we believe with the project can provide to the community in addition to housing. So the multi-user commercial commissary kitchen that can be used by the public for different events or for, as Jeff mentioned, processing. Housing units, of course, and then connection to bus and transportation, park and recreation, and then possible connections with the new park to events and city investment in downtown. So there's some synergy there with the investment that the city of Rockaway is doing. And we feel like this development could fit well into the new infrastructure they're trying to develop in that neighborhood. So the virtues of the project, what we feel it'll bring to the community and the reason why we feel it's important, provides community development for the city of Rockaway, not only commercial, but residential, expansion of business development for North Coast region, just as Jeff was speaking to. And then we hope this could be a pilot or a model for similar Oregon and coastal areas, North Coast, south of Tillamook. There's a lot of potential, we feel like, to replicate this. And community partners, these are the people in the community we've been talking to about their need for housing and what their goals are in terms of workforce housing. And so the Creamery, Pelican Brewing have both had interest in securing units for their workers, because as I mentioned, I think it was Pelican that said that their workers were sleeping in their cars, and so not an ideal situation either. We've talked with the healthcare, Adventist Healthcare, about their need for employee housing as well. The school district also had a big need when we met with them. And then Jeff's business, of course. And then the Tillamook Coast Visitors Association has also been very helpful in giving us information about the need for housing and possible solutions. So I guess do you have anything else to add? And Vito is our architect who's online, and so he's available to answer any questions about the design or. And Vito, I was hoping maybe you could talk a little bit about the construction process, like the advanced design and the modular simplified design that you've been working with.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yeah, thank you, Vito here. Yeah, I just want to, kind of hit on a couple points too that were brought up that I think this lot is unique in the fact that how narrow it is, and it's a fun and interesting opportunity to take a smaller lot in a more central location and take advantage of a higher density to get the unit count. So it's definitely a design task to achieve this on the site. And yeah, with the design, we're working with some companies in Oregon that can take the model and the designs that are to date and prefabricate it, so they would be able to panelize the wall systems and build them off site to bring them to the property with little to no waste at all. So a very sustainable building method that is good for the environment, but also helps expedite the project schedule as well.
And also can be replicated, I think, easily.
Yes, correct. It's a modular system that you can create like a kit of parts, if you will, that can be replicated easily for this project, but also, future ones down the line. So yeah, here to help any questions as they come up.
Question.
Yeah.
There was no budget included, so what's the ask and how much are the average rents on these?
So the average rents would be at 100% of AMI. Let's see, we have it here. So for the studio, we'd be looking at 1,300, and then the 2-bedroom would be 1,700. And the ask would be 20,000 per unit, so 80,000. And that would be to help us cover the pre-development costs. I believe we're in phase 2 pre-development, and so that would help us to get the site, like I said, is pretty much ready to go, but it'll help us with the like things like the survey and paying for the rest of the architectural and getting the permits and all that stuff that we need to get ready to start construction.
And are the units ADA accessible?
We don't have a plan right now. There is a possibility we could put 2 more ADA units on the bottom floor, but right now it would just be those 4 on top.
And I'd like to add that that is partially due to the agreement with the Lions not coming to fruition and falling apart. Jeff did have plans to make this ADA, but without the Lions, it's a little less pertinent.
Yeah, the original plan was 18 to 20 units up above and then 2 ADA units fully accessible on the bottom. But we scaled the project back, and so at this point, there is no ADA on site.
And did you say that you were applying for a parking variance, so there will be parking applied for residents?
Well, the parking would be, I believe, would be across the street, right?
Well, what we would, and this is all speculative, but ideally we would, with the new parking lot being built, get some, possibly lease some spots from the city for nighttime use. And generally what we've been watching is that our schedule, when we start crew, they're not around when there's high use during the summertime. And so I think, and if there is an issue, we would do nighttime parking, but the only issue I think is Saturday nights for bingo. Yeah. And the only other time I've seen it really busy is during like the fireworks and whatnot, but that street is surprisingly kind of quiet because it's a lonely street.
I was just curious of how that's going to interact with the tenants being a community space downstairs. You mentioned possibly events or.
No. That would be just a really a commissary, but because there's an event space being built at the city park, I'd love to have someone cater to have food and whatnot for them. And supposedly they're putting in superchargers as well. So I'd like someone to feed those people while they're waiting for it to charge up. Because really, I mean, we have a couple new places, but Rockaway there's not a lot of food options, not a lot of healthy food options. There's some new options that have come in that are great. But if we could do something where we can tap into what we have local here, then that's what I'm all about.
We also feel like this would be a proof of concept too. So if we could get this built, we're looking to do more projects similar to this moving forward. So
I think Dave has a question online, but I'd also just like to add, just so you know how tiny this lot is, this is a 25 by 100 lot. So very, very small. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could repeat or if you could just elaborate on your public improvements that you mentioned, or that you were going to, that if you could mention that again. I must have missed it. I had a little on and off online. Thanks.
Well, the public improvements in terms of utilities or in terms of community?
In terms of community, such as any art or anything on site, sidewalk, anything like that you're going to propose with the project?
The public improvements are going to be food, really, in all honesty. It's nothing going to be really tangible and, but definitely from that perspective, as far as social benefit, so social benefits, but really we haven't looked at any art or anything because I'm like, this is kind of a working class deal. So it's not something where we're really considering, and it's a very small micro footprint thing. If we were going big, I would have built a really cool lion or something if we had partnership. But being what it is, unfortunately, we're just going to have to benefit the community in other ways.
And given the location of that lot, there's not a lot of options.
No, it's a bowling alley, so essentially.
But it's
Thank you.
equivalent to the project in Tillamook, I think, in
Lisa
downtown.
Bennett.
It's a very downtown project, and right across the street is the beach. And right down the street, the city is rehabbing a parking lot next to the grocery store to be at Summer Park. So it's located.
So our
next to
public
one of the
improvements will
amenities.
be removing a very ugly shed, an old tree, and make something really, really eye-catching in a very small space.
Thank you.
But we did talk to the Oregon Food Bank about possibly a food pantry when we were looking at the bigger project. And so that's still another possibility if we can find another site to expand or a second phase of the project.
And they may also be users of our commercial space. I'm currently fishing under a contract with USDA, and 100% of my catch goes right now to our local food bank, goes to senior meals, actually. We've delivered thousands of pounds of fish to them. And so if you see fish on their menu now, it's coming from our boat. But that aside, I want to get back to that. We did the 2-bedroom units up front because I'm finding that there's a lot of couples now that are getting into working together. And there's fishing couples like crew member and captain and baker and salesperson. And that's one person that I've asked us to come in as a bakery. And that's kind of why we did the 2-bedroom, because we're finding a lot of couple-oriented businesses that are also food producers. So if you were wondering why we did that mix.
Dave has a question online. He's got 2 hands up.
Thanks.
He's on mute.
Dave Bennett, you're up and you're on mute.
Sorry. Guys, this is an exciting project. A couple questions for you. If I understand correctly, the residential units on the second floor total 3,000 square feet. Does that sound right?
It's more like 2,000, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, close to 3,000.
Okay. So does that mean then that the first floor structure commercial area is also about 3,000 square feet?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
So total facility or project size is 6,000 square feet.
Correct.
Okay. Well, guys, at 6,000 square feet for an $876,000 project cost works out to about $150 a foot, which is something we very rarely, if ever, see these days. That would indicate that your panelized concept might really be paying some dividends. $150 a square foot is really what it takes to make these workforce housing projects work. So that's kind of exciting to hear that. Do you feel like your costs are pretty well nailed down
Well, yeah, but also please consider that it's a vanilla shell on the bottom. And so it's just open free span on the first floor until we build that out. So I think that's lowering the average down considerably from residential square foot pricing.
Right, right. So the kitchen itself would be quite a bit more expensive.
Considerably.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So in your pro forma here, we have as sources of funds, home/GHAP/lift/small project development, $710,000. Can you help me understand what each of those funding sources are?
Sure. So those are funding sources from the state. And I think, as one of the earlier projects mentioned, the state funding round is just opening now for this year. And so we're planning to apply for state funds to come up with that amount. And those would be different programs that we could apply for, depending on whether or not they're eligible for the project. But I guess this year, the state, instead of applying for each program individually, they've changed their application. So it's one application for all the programs. And that's why we listed them on there, because we're just going to do the one state application for the funding sources that can apply to this project.
Okay. Okay. And so your equity in the deal at this point is primarily the land that you purchased for $65,000?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's see. In my packet, I didn't get a pro forma with regard to revenues and expenses, rental revenues, rental expenses. Is that something that you have available?
Yes, we can get that a bit. We didn't include that because we hadn't nailed down the rent levels yet exactly, but yes, we can certainly provide that for you.
Okay, okay. All right, I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question, if you've been working with the city of Rockaway Beach.
Yes.
And
I did,
that's going, I know they have the
Right.
right.
because I worked with a town north of Rockaway Beach. And it was.
I've heard.
I mean, it's like so refreshing.
Yeah, they've been very helpful, so very, very cooperative.
Great.
And I have to ask the question about mix of employers, right? So we listed all those employers that you talk to, right?
Yeah.
But is the intention, so your employees wouldn't be there year round, is that, or what's the story there on the
I
mix?
don't know. That's a good question.
Okay.
My mix in my mind is
Yeah.
that there's some anchor people that are there because some of my guys who know how to fish for fish aren't good at other things, right? So it's very seasonal. And so my crew is very transient. I have a real set crew that come down, which will probably take one of the 1-bedroom studios and rotate out of there. But as far as in my mind, I want some makers and producers that are year round and have something to make. I have a sourdough guy, I have a brownie person, and it's all baked stuff for some reason. And then I have and in your packet, I think you'll see a letter from Crabber that they have to commute down. That he sent a letter in with his wife.
Okay.
So that's kind of the mix. So I don't know exactly, but I just envision that build it and they will come. And I think there's a need there because I see them at the farmer's market and they're always asking me for, where am I putting out my people? I said, they're driving down, unfortunately. So.
Thanks.
Final call questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm good. Slides, but they got the. Oh, that's okay. No worries. That's great. Yeah. All right, I'll give everybody a few moments to finish up your notes before we'll begin our next presentation in just a couple minutes. Eric, can you take me off until I get into the.
Yeah. Let's put our names on.
No, it won't matter. You don't need to put your names on it.
So we got you. I hope there was second in the base when it's going to be just handwriting analysis on it. Oh, no.
Is that okay?
Yeah. I can't even imagine what we would say, because my handwriting is super boy dependent. Oh, yeah. It's super wild. Well, sometimes prints, like cursive and some words and make sure. Yeah, that's exactly like I definitely got like different ways that I write.
Only got once.
Yeah.
It's only once, and that's the previous.
Right. And then going to figure the rest of the.
Yes.
I don't know about it. So this is kind of a temporary. I was looking better. It's probably more.
If she emailed me, yeah, she might have already done it.
Well, I'm sure. Hey guys, we'll start reconvening and get going in this moment.
Really confused about the whole camera situation, how this is working.
So it moves around and it points at whoever's talking. So like if you,
Yeah, it will follow you.
yeah.
I'm finally getting my knee restructured tomorrow, so that's the long time ACL repair finally going in tomorrow, so that's the quasi pain here. I want to, no, that's fine. Thanks for that.
All right, well, when you're ready, I think we are as well.
Sure. Well, hi, I'm Ben Prey. Thanks for having me. I'm the owner and CEO of Home First Development. We're a Portland, Oregon-based affordable housing developer, but we work all over Oregon. And really excited to tell you about our concept. Welcome your support, your questions, your comments, your ideas to make it better, make it happen, hopefully. I'll wait till I see our slide and then we'll get going.
There it is.
Hello. So we're Home First Development. All we do is build affordable housing, which is masochistic. If you know anything about affordable housing, I recommend another industry. Everything we do is based on partnerships, right? So we work wherever affordable housing is needed. We find local friends. They tell us there's a need. We do whatever we can to figure it out with them. And that's the program. So across Oregon, that's what we're doing. If you can go back to the slide for one moment. You can see that map there that shows kind of what we've done, what we're doing, what we hope to do. We're all across Oregon and we're not, we're based in Portland, but that's actually not our strong suit. We work in small towns like Mill City and Staten, Molalla, Tillamook, hopefully Manzanita. So places that are hard to build affordable housing, places that don't traditionally often welcome affordable housing, or there's some caution about affordable housing. Places that have workforce issues, places that have low AMIs or income limits that make it challenging. Those are where we're excited to build and to try to figure it out. It's not always easy, but the partnerships are really fun. And so that's what we're doing right now. You can see we're busy. So slide. You know, in towns like Manzanita and really all across Oregon, the term affordable housing is really scary. People have connotations of what that looks like, what that'll feel like, what that'll do to a neighborhood. So on the front end, at least our job, we try to calm that down a little bit and make sure people understand that what we're building is often superior to what would be market rate housing. So these are pictures of things that we're building right now in Molalla, right here in Tillamook, Portland, Staten, Estacada. These are 9-foot ceilings, quartz countertops, nice floors. Washer dryer and unit, stainless steel. We really build units that we would live in, our neighbors would live in, community members would live in, county commissioners would live in. So really nobody can worry about the quality of the product. So we're really proud of that. And it's an evolving process. Every year we hope it'll be better. So when we talk about Manzanita, we think it'll be our best thing we've ever built. Whatever's after that will be the best thing we've ever built. So we're proud of that. Slide. So speaking of Manzanita, This is a concept rendering of what we hope to pull off in Manzanita, pending local support. That's the only thing that makes it work. And pending funding from the state, that's the other thing that makes it work. If you don't have those two things, you don't have a project. So this is just an artist's illustration of what at least is initially conceived to be a 60-unit project, primarily of family housing, right? This is 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and even some 4 bedrooms for families. That's what we were asked to build or to bring to the market. Slide. This concept is responsive. So there's a report saying you need 60 units in Manzanita. Here's 60 units. It's innovative. That property, as I think most of y'all know, includes single family homes that are just market rate. We include this affordable concept capped at 60%, and then there's the opportunity for something in between. So that's pretty cool, right? So it's a neat property, and it's neat that the way they could conceptually all work together. We've been at the table with these folks for almost 2 years now in discussions, just hoping to find the right mix, the right program, the right partners. So I'm sorry, I think another cool word there. It's affordable. Everything there is affordable. And the way we try to do our affordable housing, we're not a nonprofit. We try to be a little bit leaner and more efficient. We want to do affordable housing with as little paperwork and bureaucratic red tape as possible. So we try to have it affordable without needing Section 8 vouchers. Just have it be affordable. That's our goal. That makes it a lot easier. It pulls some of the restrictions from the feds off. So we are an affordable housing developer, but we don't love affordable housing development, right? We don't want it to look like normal affordable housing. We want it to really just feel like regular community housing. So these will be affordable with no vouchers. Our concept site plan, keep in mind this is a concept. This is not, we have not applied for permits. We don't have final drawings. We don't even have full SVs. We don't have anything other than, hey, this is what we could do on that land. We have a survey. We've had great discussions. We've talked to the city. Great. Here's 60 units. It shows how it could work with this lovely layout with a nice little parking loop, a community room in the middle, a soccer field, a playground, and there's a nice slope there that would sort of hide the verticality of the building, whether it's 2 stories, 3 stories, whatever stories, but it'd be nicely nestled into that hillside and it would look nice in the context of the surrounding environment. Slide. Like I said, huge part of what we do, we're trying to make this for families. We're trying to make this for healthy and vibrant communities. So what can we include that'll make it cool for families? Soccer field is one thing. We were told that a community garden would be neat. So that's on the plan. A playground and connected walking trails that would go throughout all the rest of the acreage. Everything that we build has a community room in some form or fashion. Those community rooms should be for property management, leasing, birthday parties, whatever. These are going to be would be a feature on the site used by resident services provider, by property management, and by residents. And then our floor plans, we've put a ton of energy into. We're obviously trying to build as efficiently as possible, right? So affordable housing, you're capping your income, so you need your costs to be contained, but we don't want to compromise quality. So we have just absolutely iterated for years on what is the most efficient floor plan we can possibly build that's welcoming for families. They walk in, there's storage, it makes sense, there's enough bedrooms, but it's efficient to build. So these are going to be generous floor plans, 2s, 3s, 4s. People are going to be happy to live there. There's storage. There's typically balconies, but we have to go through permits. And yeah, so we're happy with our floor plans and those kind of iterations of how they keep getting better. We have partnerships. We have to have partnerships, right? We won't win any funding from the state if we don't demonstrate strong partnerships. That's why we're here today. That can often be a first part of the puzzle. We also need Consejo Hispano, Cornerstone Community Housing is actually based in Springfield, but they do resident services all across the state. And we'll take any community partners you got. Anybody who's interested in family housing or benefit from family housing wants to partner with us. They want referrals. They want to use the community room. They have a specific need on the site. Lay it on us. We want this to be a reflection of what's needed in Manzanita and Tillamook County. The timeline is we'll just do the application and I'm sure then they'll just give us our award. No, so we'll wait and find out like everybody else if we won. You know, we're pretty good at this. We've I think secured about 19 competitive applications from the state in the last 5 years across the state. I think we've lost twice in that time period. So we feel good about our chances when the deal works. we begin construction. Typically, our construction is a 12 to 14-month timeline. Obviously, there's variables depending on the characteristics of the land. And then we want new residents to move in. We'd have local property managers if at all possible. Funding, we don't know, right? Just we're like everybody else trying to figure out what OHES is doing. We know that funding from y'all is a demonstration of support, and that's catalytic, and that will help us along. We will apply for as much as we can. We will borrow as much as we can from a bank. Obviously, interest rates make that challenging. If interest rates go lower, we borrow more. They go higher, we borrow less. I mean, it's very simple math. We keep our sources and uses as simple as possible. A lot of affordable housing developers, you'll see 15 sources, and it took 5 years to line them up. That's not us. We're just going to try to turn and burn and figure it out a little bit more simply. We've successfully applied for and deployed more than $90 million in LIFT funds since that program was initiated. So we have a track record. We can show them. We have a project here in Tillamook. We could show a good construction timeline. That project is fully leased up and going great. So we can show them we know how to do this. What would we do with the money? Well, we'll do whatever. We'll try to get this thing looking like it's shovel ready. That's not really going to happen. We know it's a complicated site. We know there's a lot of complicated issues locally to work through, but we can advance the design, right? We can get engineering on it, architecture on it. We can pay for all of our reports, surveys, geotechnical, traffic studies, everything that'll make the local community feel more comfortable with it. And our partners in the surrounding acreage feel better about it. So we can really have plans ready to rock. Once we have plans ready to go, who knows how long that timeline is to get permits. But we can shorten that considerably, right? By getting to CDs. And then we can typically close on our financing within 6 months. So it can be a fairly accelerated process. Like I said, if we get funding, we don't want our funding to come at the risk of really interesting, cool local projects like the one we just heard of, right? So we get it. Whatever you got for us that'll support this, it'll help. It makes a huge difference. And if you go to the next slide, I just put a few examples of how really it's big funding, but relative to the whole project, it can look small. It's not. This is what gets these things built. Ontario Townhomes, we were the first affordable housing out there for a long time. That's because we had a $300,000 grant from Meyer. We went to the state, said, look at this, and then they funded it. Same deal with the Willett, thanks to the funding from the Columbia Pacific. Down in Corvallis, the city kicked in $300,000. Wouldn't you know, we won that round and lived. Same thing for the Springfield Apartments. City of Springfield just put in money, and there we won the small projects Nova. So that's how this works. And so we don't want it to be at the risk of really cool local projects. Obviously, we get it. We're not from Portland, or rather from Tillamook County. But we think these 60 units in Manzanita will be dazzling. It's going to be something Manzanita is really proud of. Tillamook County is really proud of. And every dollar of support that you can put into it, it will pay off in a funded project. Questions?
Where exactly is this located in Manzanita? Is it in the urban growth boundary, or you said it, do you have a site?
Yeah, there's a site, and I believe somebody else even presented for one of the adjacent sites.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is east of Classic, for those of you who
Oh,
speak.
okay.
local.
So is it the new subdivision, or is it gonna be off?
Above Highland?
Yeah. Yes, Jim and Rick's property.
Yes.
Whenever I try to get an address on it on Google, it just gives me coordinates.
So how far along were you with Manzanita? I mean, if Manzanita's thumbs up, Manzanita's neutral, what do you think?
There's somewhere in between thumbs up and neutral.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they like the concept. They know it's needed. They've got a lot of smart people who care about this. I think we've got to work through the height, right? Nobody wants tall buildings. We understand that, but they also want 60 units on X amount of square feet. So we got to work through that. I gathered that there'd be a preference for 2-story. Well, we can do that. Mill City was the same thing. Mill City did not want 3-story buildings. We totally get it. So we've got a really nice kind of model of 2-story kind of a townhouse concept that works really well, but we would lose some units. So I hope we can get them there on 60, but we're flexible.
ADA accessibility considerations.
Yeah, we'll have type 1 units on first floor. Yep, and then we'll be adaptable on every unit.
Dave Bennett.
Hey, another good project, looks great. I know it's very preliminary, so it's hard to know how all your funding will come together. But with regard to the first funding, that concept, so for example, if it was $400,000 of first funding, how is that generally utilized? Is it utilized in helping to make grant applications to the state? Or is it kind of held in reserve until the grant application has been approved and then used for the project to fund project costs?
Dave, we would burn through it. We would spend it. Yeah, man. We would hire architects, we would hire engineers, we would get our reports, and we would get the thing shovel ready. You know, a lot of times you apply for funding and it's wait till next year. And you know, the way the system works, and you just sort of go one higher in the queue. And then we say the next year, hey, we're still out here shovel ready, permit ready, right? So we would use it on practical project expenses that are in the pro forma.
So that first funding is really kind of at-risk money in case the project is not funded by the state.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And you've had a couple of those that weren't funded. Was it 2 out of 19 or something like that?
Yeah, they were dogs. We don't talk about them though. No, yeah, I think we've had just a handful. One of them was just because the zoning, we thought we could sneak through without the zoning being right. We thought we'd get funded and then, you know, help lever. That didn't work. And then another one, one project took all the funding that year, and it was a really good project. So you can't really complain. I think it took $19 million that one project won that one year, and everybody else in the room was like, well, we'll try again next year, you know? Typically we, you know, like most affordable housing developers, you're comfortable waiting a year if you have to.
What is your normal development fee as a percentage of the total costs?
Yeah, it's a percentage of the cost. It's regulated by OHCS. And whatever that formula is, that's what we underwrite. Right now, I'll be honest, we have 3 projects that are funding right now. We are 100% deferred fee. We will not get paid for our work on those 3 projects. That's because when we underwrote them, interest rates were normal. Now they're not. The same thing happened during the pandemic when we all of a sudden had to close on projects and our lumber costs double. So yeah, we underwrite whatever it is, and then it completely fluctuates for literally years until we're done.
So are we talking about approximately 5% as the developer's fee?
No, 5% is closer to what the general contractor fee is. Typically, it's going to be something like 13 or 14% of the overall project.
Okay.
There's a formula in the pro forma, Dave, that it's called developer fee on the tab, and it'll show you how OHCS does that calculation.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm wondering if projects you incorporate environmental and renewable energy benefits and what those look like.
I can tell you what we do for environmental, but I don't know if it'll be the same thing you're asking about, right? So we do everything is built to Earth Advantage Gold certification standards. We do the MEP program from OHCS, so we typically have a reservation of funds when they're available. And then we have solar wherever we can. I don't think solar would make sense in Manzanita. So yeah, so we don't have any, and we have some tax credits that are weird for energy. But I don't know if there's a specific program you're referring to that I'm missing.
Not a program per se, but like water catchment systems and just creative landscape.
Yeah, to the greatest extent possible, we want to deal with all stormwater on site. We want everybody's bills to be as low as possible. So, I mean, we have some people whose utilities expenses are like $17. I mean, because these are really tight, efficient units, and that helps us catch some subsidies on the other end too. So we definitely, and if this was a year from now, I'd be describing our green building capacity. We just haven't gotten around to hiring a consultant to tell us all the right words, but we are Earth Advantage Gold on everything we build.
Can you build more of these around?
We want to. Tillamook County is a really hard place to build. For us, you know, everything is based on the model. We want to borrow as much money as possible, and that's based on how much money is coming in. And as you know, your rent limits are very low, so it's really tight market, and that's part of why this funding I mean, frankly, the only way we're going to get this funded is with your support, because there's unlikely to be tax credits this year. So we're pulling tax credits out, and we're going to have to lean on the subsidy from OHCS to even make it squeak by. I mean, it's going to be really tight. We sent them a model about 7 months ago to say, hey, we know you're changing things. This is what it looks like in counties like Tillamook, Malheur, Harney, places that absolutely need this, they have to think about the way they do their subsidy, not just on income, like not just in regions. Who cares if you're rural? Estacada is technically rural. It's not rural. Their incomes are 30%, 40% higher than yours. So we tried to show them what needs to work here in Tillamook. And they received it, but I haven't seen how it was implemented or if it's going to be.
I think that's good information for our legislative members though, because the geo costs and other factors here are into consideration. And I don't think just being rural does not qualify.
Yeah, they've got to look at income limits and not just location.
And if you added like 100% AMI units, would you be disqualified from the state funding?
I wish depends on the color of the money. For lift, it would. That's statutorily, it is obligated to not exceed 60% if you get lift funding. So the other money I heard mentioned, the small projects money and some of these other ones, you can go up, you can income average. We would love to do that. But until they make the change for lift, I don't know if they're even contemplating it, we can't.
Will you be going back to the CCO for this project?
We probably should, when we put that together, I was like, hey, that'd be a good idea. Yeah, we'll need to, you know, and then I saw the list of businesses, we've talked to the same businesses for Tillamook. You know, until we see what OHS is putting out for funding, it's really hard to know, but we're gonna probably need some kind of gap, some kind of local fill to make it work. But it'll work, it always works. I mean, it's always hard at the beginning, and then something comes together and some weird phone call and comes together.
I believe Ed has a question.
Yeah, in your projects that you've done around Oregon, are any of them with market rate projects, market rate units mixed into the overall project?
Oh, hi, Ed. Yeah, we were just talking about that a little bit, and we have not. No, everything we do is 100% affordable. I'm very interested in that, especially on larger projects, but until I have a better understanding of what funding source would allow it, we really can't do it. Also, our property managers hate it. They can't figure out how to tag each unit, what happens when you lose one unit at market, then you gotta, it's hairy.
There is a lot of conversation at OHCS right now about how to do mixed income projects. And so that is something that a lot of people are thinking about.
I'm just curious about the fact that in our community, we've done studies and we know that there's such a gap in the number of units that are available. And so, you know, to Kristen's point, like, can you help us fill that gap in this community if this is a model that works? I see the map, I see that it, you know, do you have a top limit for the number of projects and are you just trying to focus statewide? Or if you find a good community that kind of is able to wrap around, do you see yourself potentially investing repeatedly?
Oh, we're scaling up right now. We're actually joining with other developers to double and triple our capacity. The thing we need is everything. Affordable is like sort of starting the race with like farm type behind its back, whatever. So you need something going for you. There has to be some resource that makes it make sense. Otherwise, the math doesn't work. So if a local community says, gosh, we really want to make this work, cool, find 4 sites. Make them flat, make them utility served, get them ready to rock. That reduces our cost. Now we're ready to go. Now we can walk in, our risk is significantly reduced. Now we can go. We know our vertical costs. Everybody knows the cost of buildability. We're worried about the dirt, the infrastructure, local jurisdictions saying we have to put in 45 power poles. So a local community can make it easy by identifying land, getting land ready, and then bring this in. We would love that.
Have you seen that happen in any community?
No, we should do that.
Like-
Do that. Yeah. No, we want to build. We don't want to be tinkering around talking about if it's needed or just want to do the building, man. So yeah, we need help with land. It's really hard to find up and all around Oregon and stuff, right? So especially land that's not a dog or near ODOT.
Have you guys been looking at the funding that ties to childcare on site as well?
We're hoping to pilot that on a project in Salem. Yeah, we're really excited about that.
I'm gonna send you an email. I have someone on one of those committees.
Oh,
that's like,
please
is there
do.
a developer I can talk to?
Yes,
I said,
that's us.
Yes, there is.
Yes, we're trying really
Okay.
hard and they've got some wonky rules that are making it harder. than it
Okay,
needs to be.
I'm gonna send you, she an email.
Great.
Thank you.
Looking around for anyone with more questions? Looks like there's Dave Madison online has a question.
I just wanted to say I'm very impressed with your presentation and your site plan, and looking forward to seeing what comes of this. Thanks.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I think that's a great place to end the presentation. Let's make a plan to go see this. That's good. Yeah.
I'm gonna give everybody about 5 minutes to go through your last, finish up your questionnaires, your scale part before we have a brief little conversation or finish our agenda, which should hopefully be fairly short because I know we're past time already.
Dave, I'm gonna put your hand down unless you have a question again.
And I do want to thank everybody for coming and presenting today. And very informative.
Thank you.
And I'm sure Parker will keep you posted on how it progresses.
Absolutely. The timeline on events will be, we will be making deliberations at our next meeting and making our final recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners at that point. And through the month, we'll be discussing in committees any questions and any information you want to use. The next meeting is the first Thursday of every month. It'll be February. Maybe recognition before, more. And this was more like a very good.
Hey, Carrie? I just wanted to acknowledge, I invited Greg Walton to come to the meeting, and I don't know if he's left yet. I can't tell from the camera, but I just want to acknowledge, he's a home builder. Okay, he's a home builder in the North County area and is interested in our efforts.
Great. Thank you.
All right, I think we're ready to. Oh, no, one more moment.
Did we collect?
No.
Good. Parker, I did give you Mrs. Yes, they're in there and I wrote on the file completed.
Okay, great, thank you. Oh, right. Parker. That's
Our homework down.
You will be graded.
Keep them together, write your name on them too, so.
No names, we don't need them.
No, no, no.
There's no reason for it. It's all gonna get collated.
Right.
All righty. Looking like we're ready to finish out here fairly quickly.
I think so.
So next up is outreach committee update. Do you have anything for us?
I really don't, because we didn't end up having a meeting because of the timing of the holidays. But there was some informal chats with Parker where some good discussions were had, but I don't think anything really to report out unless somebody from the committee has anything timely.
I think the only thing is that in February, we'll be doing the release of the, whenever the rural residential ADUs get finalized, we'll be making a release on that.
Okay. And do you have anything to bring forward?
We're living it right now.
Perfect. So true. As far as legislative, we are coming back from our hiatus and having a meeting in January, the third Wednesday. And I just heads up. January 8th is when we should hopefully, the legislative council will be returning measures to the floor, so maybe we can start getting previews on what potential legislation might be put forth this session. January 10th through the 12th is legislative days. Unfortunately, I'm gonna be out of town, but if there's anybody that wants to go to the Capitol to hear information about legislative days, that's a great opportunity to do so. And then the session starts February 5th and proceeds through March 10th. So it's gonna be a very rapid fire 6 weeks of fun. In February 7th is when they're gonna receive their revenue forecast, which basically tells them how much money is gonna be potentially available for spending. On it, and usually it's asked, a lot of money is being asked for at the state level, and then all of the all the senators and legislators to proposing bills, they are limited to 2 per representative. So the quantity of number of bills should be fairly condensed as well as the time frame. So I just wanted to give you guys kind of a heads up that we're gonna have a very rapid fire session, and we may have a very short report out quickly in February, and then there's just a wrap-up session in March. So we'll try to keep you posted in the interim.
Just curious if that information could come out in an email, and I'm wondering if tapping into that piece that you mentioned that you won't be able to attend, is there a virtual option for that, or is it only in person?
I will send you guys all a link
Okay,
on the legislative days,
thank you.
because it's next week.
Okay,
So if there's anything, again, I've never done one or never gone to one or participated in it. And so to me, it sounds interesting. But I don't know much about it. So I just, if it's a learning opportunity for all of us, and if there's somebody that's looking to learn more, I'm all for it. But yes, I will share it to the group, the links to that information. And Development Code Committee update. I know you guys didn't have a meeting, Ed. So is there anything you want to update us on?
Well, as you say, we didn't have a meeting for the month because of the holidays. We're going to meet this month, and we're going to try to schedule an in-person meeting to kick the year off so people could get to know each other. We're getting up in terms of having numbers of people on the committee. I'm real pleased at that. And we'll be talking generally about our work plan of what we want to try to accomplish in 2024. So Parker's working on getting a place for us to meet. We'll get the word out early on that.
Great, thank you. Is there any members of the public remaining that would like to make a comment? All right, well, with that, at 11:17, we're gonna adjourn.
Thank you all.
Aaron?
We're in your side.
So, okay, so then your conditions either receive. I'm sure that I don't know if I'm going to get last one. And they just go around. 2 hours later.